He didn't lose interest. Stop telling yourself that. Stop shrinking your worth to fit a story that was never true. Because if you pay attention, if you look past the silence, if you listen to the energy instead of the distance, you'll see it, clear as day, undeniable, uncomfortable, but true. He didn't pull away because he stopped caring. He pulled away because caring became too real, too fast, too deep, too exposed. And for someone who has spent years controlling their emotions, carefully managing what they feel, and choosing relationships they can predict, your presence was not predictable. Your connection was not casual. Your energy was not safe. In the way he's used to, he didn't retreat because nothing was there. He retreated because suddenly something was, something powerful, something disarming, something that required honesty, vulnerability, effort, exposure, presence. And he didn't know how to handle that. Not with you, not with someone who sees through him, without him saying a word. Let me tell you the truth. Nobody says out loud. Avoidant men don't run from women. They run from awakening. They run from the version of themselves they'd have to become to meet your level. Because with you, he felt something shift, something open, something soften, something he didn't plan for. He felt himself getting attached. He felt his guard start to crack. He felt old wounds rising to the surface, asking to be healed. And instead of leaning in, instead of embracing it, instead of letting himself rise to the kind of connection he secretly wanted, he panicked. Not in a dramatic way, not in a loud way, not in a way you could confront. No, avoidance panicked quietly, silently, internally, in the moments where they feel too much, in the moments you get too close, in the moments they realize you can actually reach them. And you, love, you reached him. You reached the parts he thought were locked away forever. You reached the places no one else even noticed. You touched the softest parts he hides beneath confidence, humor, logic, busyness, distance, or silence. And that terrified him, because feelings like that, they require showing up. They require trying. They require choosing. They require dropping the armor he's been carrying for years. And he wasn't ready to drop anything. He wasn't prepared to meet someone who made him feel more in 2 months than he's felt in 5 years. He wasn't prepared for someone who didn't need to play games to make him care. He wasn't prepared for someone who made him feel safe and exposed at the same time. You became the mirror he wasn't ready to look into. Not because you did anything wrong, not because you weren't enough, but because you were too real, too genuine, too emotionally honest, too connected to the parts of him he spends his life avoiding. He didn't lose interest. He lost control, and that scared him. So what does a man like that do? He withdraws. He slows down. He distances. He convinces himself it's better this way. He tells himself he's not ready, not capable, not enough. He doesn't stop caring. He stops trusting himself with someone he could actually lose. Because losing you would hurt in a way he doesn't feel prepared for. So he tries to prevent the pain before it happens by pulling back, by disconnecting, by retreating into silence, instead of dealing with the feelings that silence creates. And here's the part that stings the most. He didn't expect to feel this much. He didn't plan to fall this deeply. He didn't imagine someone like you would matter this much this quickly. And when a heart like his meets a soul like yours, the instinct isn't to hold on. It's to run. Not because he doesn't feel the connection, but because he does. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares. in a way that frightens him. Not because you were wrong for him, but because you were right, before he believed he was ready for right. And here's what most women never realize. When an avoidant man is truly done, he feels nothing. But when he feels everything, all at once, he disappears. Not to escape you, to escape himself, to escape the version of him you awaken, to escape the effort he's afraid he can't maintain, to escape the feelings that make him question the emotional walls he's lived behind for years. He didn't lose interest. He lost the illusion of emotional control. And for men like him, that loss feels terrifying. So he pulled back, not because you didn't matter, but because you mattered in a way he was not prepared to manage. Remember this, love. A man who loses interest gets bored. A man who gets scared gets quiet. He didn't check out. He shut down. And shutting down is not the same as letting go. He didn't pull back because he stopped liking you. He pulled back because the connection stopped being casual and started being real. And real terrifies people who've only ever known half love and guarded emotions. You need to understand this. What you awakened in him is not small, not simple, not controllable. You awaken the one thing he's always avoided, a connection that requires him to actually show up. And that's where the fear begins. Because a woman like you isn't a break. You're not a convenience. You're not an ego boost or a temporary warm place to land. You're the type of woman whose presence forces a man to face himself. And most men don't know how to handle that. So instead of leaning in, he takes a step back, not because he doesn't care, but because caring comes with responsibility, and responsibility comes with vulnerability, and vulnerability requires truth. Truth about how he feels, truth about what he wants, truth about where he stands, truth about what he's afraid of, and truth is something he's avoided his entire life. You aren't intimidating because you're loud, or demanding, or overwhelming. You're intimidating because you're clear, clear in what you feel, clear in what you give, clear in what you deserve. And clarity is a threat to someone who's been surviving on emotional ambiguity. He didn't expect a woman who listens deeply, who sees patterns, who notices shifts, who hears the things he doesn't say out loud. He didn't expect a woman who can read him in the silence. He didn't expect a woman who gives without games and loves without manipulation. He didn't expect a woman who makes him feel safe enough to be honest yet terrified of what that honesty might reveal. So he retreats. He starts analyzing everything, overthinking everything, questioning everything. He tries to talk himself out of feeling you. He convinces himself you're better off without him. He convinces himself you would see his flaws eventually. He convinces himself you want more than he can offer. But the truth is, he's not afraid of losing you. He's afraid of being fully seen and still being chosen, because that means he has something real to lose. Men like him know how to handle distance. They know how to handle casual. They know how to handle masks and half effort and guarded affection. But they don't know how to handle a woman who brings peace and passion in the same breath. A woman who doesn't chase, but also doesn't play. A woman who's soft, but also strong enough to walk away. A woman who loves deeply, but refuses to lose herself. You shifted something in him, a switch he wasn't prepared for it, a feeling he can't control, a desire he can't suppress, a connection he can't ignore. So what does he do? He hides. He pauses. He pulls back, while convincing himself he's protecting you from his own chaos. But here's what he doesn't understand. You weren't asking him to be perfect. You weren't asking him to be fearless. You weren't asking him to be someone else. You were asking him to be honest. And honesty is the one language his heart understands, but his wounds reject. That's why he acts confused when he's actually overwhelmed. That's why he acts distant when he actually misses you. That's why he acts cold when he actually feels too much. He didn't lose interest. He got scared because finally, someone walked into his life who wasn't there to take, but to connect. Someone who wasn't temporary, but meaningful. Someone who didn't want the mask, but the man behind it. And that kind of woman is rare, disarming, disruptive, unforgettable. You didn't pressure him. You just showed him what genuine connection feels like. And that is what frightened him. Not you, not your intensity, not your presence, but the truth that with you, he could actually fall, not in lust, not in convenience, not in routine, but in love. And that is the one thing he has never learned how to do without fear. He didn't pull away because you were too much. He pulled away because he wasn't enough. In his own eyes, he pulled away because your love made him realize how much healing he has avoided. He pulled away because he felt emotionally exposed and emotionally unprepared at the same time. But here's the real kicker. The more he pulls away, the more he feels it, the more he distances himself, the more the connection grows in his chest. Because running from you does not erase the feelings. It magnifies them. It intensifies them. It sharpens them. You didn't scare him off. His feelings for you did. And no matter how far he runs, no matter how silent he becomes, no matter how much he tries to bury it, what he felt with you will not disappear because you were the first thing in his life that felt real enough to lose. And that is exactly why he pulled away. He didn't pull back because he stopped wanting you. He pulled back because wanting you felt too real, too deep, too exposing for a heart that's used to staying armored. And this is where the shift happens. Because when a man gets scared of the way you make him feel, he won't admit it with words. He admits it with distance. You saw it. The way his messages changed. The way his tone softened, then stiffened, then faded. The way he looked at you, like he was memorizing something he wasn't ready to lose, and then suddenly acted like he barely noticed you. That switch wasn't rejection. It was fear disguised as self-control. Men who've never been deeply loved don't know how to hold it when it finally arrives. And you didn't give him normal. You didn't give him casual. You didn't give him good enough. You gave him something he didn't know how to process. Consistency, warmth, presence, authenticity, emotional clarity, a feeling of being understood, without him having to explain himself. To you, this was natural. To him, it was overwhelming. Because real connection requires real vulnerability. And that is the one thing he never prepared for. People think men fear losing interest. But what many men truly fear is being loved by a woman who sees through them, because then their walls don't work anymore, and your presence quietly slipped past his defenses without asking permission. He wasn't scared of you. He was scared of how safe he felt, how much he opened up without noticing, how much he trusted you too quickly, how much his heart reacted before his mind could stop it, how much losing you would hurt if he allowed himself to fully stay. This is the truth no one tells you. When a man suddenly pulls away, it's rarely because the connection wasn't real. It's because it was real, in a way he wasn't prepared to face. You became the first woman he didn't have to perform for, the first woman he couldn't hide from, the first woman who made him feel something that wasn't shallow, wasn't replaceable, wasn't casual. You made him feel seen in a way that shook something loose inside him. And instead of leaning in, he panicked. Because if he stayed, he'd have to grow. He'd have to open. He'd have to heal. He'd have to show up differently than he ever has before. And growth is terrifying to someone who's built their identity around not needing anyone. So he did the only thing that felt familiar. He stepped back, not because he didn't feel the connection, but because he felt it too intensely. Not because he wanted distance, but because he didn't know how to stay without losing control of the walls he spent years building. You didn't imagine the chemistry. You didn't misread the signs. You didn't make it up in your head. A guarded man's heart reacts before his mouth can admit it. That's why he stared at you a little too long. That's why he softened every time you laughed. That's why his energy shifted. The moment things became emotional, he wasn't losing interest. He was losing his defenses. And that terrified him because you weren't another chapter. You were the turning point. And a turning point is what he wasn't ready for. So he created space, not because you were too much, but because he was too unprepared for the version of himself that starts to emerge when he's loved by someone like you. Here's the part that will make sense later. When a man pulls away out of fear, he keeps watching you from a distance to see how you react, not because he wants you to chase, but because he wants to know if the connection he felt was as real as he thinks it was. He wants to know if you meant what he felt, if you'll stay grounded, if you'll stay you, if his fear ruined something he wasn't ready to lose. He may act like he's fine, but his silence is loud. His distance is tense. His absence is full of questions he can't answer yet. Men don't get scared when they stop caring. Men get scared when they start. And that's exactly what happened here. He didn't lose interest. He lost control of how much he was beginning to feel. And you, without even trying, became the one woman who made his heart speak louder than his fear. He didn't pull away because things were falling apart. He pulled away because things were getting real. And real is the one thing he's never known how to handle, not with anyone, not in any relationship, not even with himself. Because real requires truth, presence, emotional exposure, consistency. And you brought all of that without even trying. You didn't chase him. You didn't pressure him. You didn't demand anything. You were simply you, soft where he was guarded, stable where he was shaky, honest where he was hesitant, clear where he was conflicted. And that combination is the most terrifying thing a wounded man can experience, not because he doesn't want it, but because he doesn't believe he deserves it. Read that again. He didn't lose interest. He lost control. And when a man feels out of control, his instinct is to retreat, to breathe, to regain balance, to step back from the intensity he wasn't prepared to feel, because you awakened something in him that he thought was buried, dead, long gone, a softness, a tenderness, a desire to be better, because you made him see what better could feel like. But improvement requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires trust, and trust requires a heart that's still intact. His isn't. Not fully. Not yet. He's been disappointed more times than he'll ever admit. He's been lied to, manipulated, abandoned, overlooked. So when he felt something real with you, something that didn't confuse him, or drain him, or make him question himself, he panicked. Because love that feels easy often feels dangerous to someone who grew up in emotional chaos. He looks confident, but his heart is held together with cracks. Cracks you didn't create, but cracks your presence made visible again. And he wasn't ready. to feel that exposed. Not yet. So he stepped back. Not to punish you. Not to reject you. Not to test you. He stepped back because he needed space from the intensity that woke up feelings he didn't know how to handle. To him, distance feels safer than desire. Silence feels safer than honesty. Pulling away feels safer than falling deeper. But make no mistake, the distance doesn't mean he stopped feeling. It means he started feeling too much. Men don't hide from women they don't care about. They hide from the ones who get too close to the parts they've tried to bury. And with you, he felt seen, so deeply seen, that it terrified him. Because when a woman sees a man clearly, he can no longer hide behind ego, excuses, or emotional armor. You didn't just touch his heart, you touched his truth. And truth is the one thing he's always avoided. So now he sits with this tension, the comfort of distance versus the pull toward you that only grows stronger the more he tries to silence it. He didn't lose interest. He lost the ability to pretend he didn't care. You made him feel something real, something deep, something he didn't expect, and definitely wasn't ready for. And that is what scared him. But here's the part he'll never say out loud. Your absence doesn't bring him peace. It brings pressure. It brings reflection. It brings clarity. He didn't ask for but needed. He may be quiet. He may be distant. He may look unaffected. But inside, his heart is working overtime to reconcile two truths. You're everything he wanted and everything he wasn't prepared to handle. But what grows in the silence is realization, awareness, understanding. He didn't step back because the connection weakened. He stepped back because it deepened. And whether he likes it or not, that depth is going to pull him back toward you with a sincerity he wasn't capable of before. Because once a man realizes he's not scared of losing you, he's scared of losing the only person who ever made him feel something real. That's the moment everything changes. He didn't lose interest. He didn't stop feeling. He didn't wake up one day and suddenly forget you. He backed away because the pressure inside him became louder than the connection between you. And here's the hidden truth. No one teaches you. When a man feels something real, something he can't control, something that shakes the walls he spent years building, he doesn't lean in. He freezes. He panics. He pulls back. Not because the feelings aren't real, but because they're too real. And for someone who has never learned how to sit with emotional intensity, real love feels like danger. With you, he wasn't just attracted. He wasn't just infatuated. He wasn't just invested. He was affected. You shifted something inside him. You touched the part of him he doesn't show the world, the part he hides behind jokes, distance, detachment, distractions. You saw the version of him he pretends doesn't exist. And that terrified him. Because once a man realizes you can see through him, you can reach him, you can disarm him without trying, he doesn't feel strong. He feels exposed. And when he feels exposed, he doesn't take a step closer. He steps back, not to lose you, but to regroup, to regain control, to breathe, to suppress the feelings he wasn't ready to feel. This is where women misunderstand the moment. You thought his silence meant he didn't care. You thought his distance meant he lost interest. You thought his pullback meant you did something wrong. But the truth is the opposite. He created distance because you reached the part of him no one else ever reached. You triggered his depth. You triggered his vulnerability. You triggered the version of him he keeps locked away from the world. And instead of rising into that version, he ran from it. Not from you, but from himself. Because loving you would require him to step into the emotional adulthood he hasn't grown into yet. It would require honesty, consistency, presence, openness. It would require him to finally face his past, his wounds, his fears, his patterns, and he wasn't ready. But here's what you must understand. A man who is scared of losing control will always look like a man who's losing interest. He doesn't communicate because communication feels like exposure. He doesn't reach out because reaching feels like surrender. He doesn't show emotion because emotion feels like weakness. But every time he avoids you, he feels you stronger. Every time he stays silent, you echo louder. Every day he spins away from you, the connection gains weight. He may hide, but he doesn't forget. He may distance, but he doesn't disconnect. He may run, but he doesn't release. Because when a man is scared of you, it's always for one reason. You are the first woman who made him feel something he can't control, can't dilute, can't replace, can't escape. And deep down, he knows something he won't admit. Another woman won't make him feel what you made him feel. And that realization terrifies him more than the connection itself. Because losing feelings feels safe, but losing you feels like a threat to everything he's been running from. So what now? You don't chase. You don't prove. You don't argue with his fear. You don't shrink yourself to make him comfortable. You stay in your power. You keep your energy intact. You keep your standards steady. You keep your emotional presence strong. Because the moment you shift from convincing him to choosing yourself, that's the moment his fear turns into clarity. Fear of losing control becomes fear of losing you. And that's when men wake up. Not when you explain. Not when you give more. Not when you fill the silence. Not when you carry the emotional weight. For both of you. But when you stop. When you step back. When you allow his fear to talk to him louder than you ever did. Because silence is the one thing a fearful heart can't outrun. And whether he admits it or not, he didn't lose interest. He lost his grip on his emotions, on his patterns, on the version of himself he was trying to maintain. You weren't too much. You were the moment. He had to face himself. And every man who runs from that moment eventually returns to it, whether with you or alone. Because the truth is simple. You were never the problem. You were the shift. And shifts don't disappear. They echo. And you, love, you echo in him far louder than his silence ever will. And if you're here listening to this, still holding on with a soft heart, remember this. You don't have to chase what already feels you. Let him rise. Let him choose. Let him meet you where you naturally live. Your job is not to pull him closer. Your job is simply not to dim yourself while he figures out how to step into the man your soul already saw in him.